So you are already familiar now with the while loop and the for loop, or the while iteration statement and the for iteration statement. In many programming languages, these are the two only types of loops that you will find. C, however, and several other languages will also provide you with a third type of iteration statement or loop, and that is the do while loop. The do while loop is, you can do without it, you can code without it, you could use a while loop in its place with some other modifications to your code, of course, but it is more convenient in some situations depending on the algorithm that you are implementing. So you'll remember that in a while loop, we test the condition at the beginning, at the start, before the first iteration of the loop. And based on whether that condition is true or false, we enter the body of the loop or don't. In a do while loop, that conditional statement is not tested at the start of the loop, it is tested at the end of the loop. What that means is that the body of the loop is guaranteed to execute at least once. So a while loop begins like this, but a do while loop uses this particular structure. Now you can see that a do while loop uses two keywords over here, do and while. And in between the do and while, usually you can have multiple statements, and those multiple statements are, of course, inside curly braces. The condition can be any condition, like the conditions we've seen before. There's one small addition over here that you should not forget when using a do while loop, and that is that you have to put a semicolon after the condition that you're checking on the line with the while, the while label, the while keyword. So that is something that you may forget the first few times. So remember, neither the for loop nor the while loop had a semicolon anywhere. Well, actually the for loop did inside the parentheses, but not the while loop. And certainly not like this, like at the end of a statement. So let me show you an example. It's a very simple example in which we print the numbers, all numbers from 1 to 10. The control variable in this example is going to be a variable called counter, and we use the pre-increment operator inside the while condition, so we do not even have to increment counter explicitly on a separate line of code. So you can see this is a very short example. We're defining an unsigned integer counter, and then we have our do while loop, which is printing out the value of counter as an unsigned integer, and this is what's happening inside the body of the do while loop, just one printf statement. And the condition that's evaluated at the end is whether or not the value of counter is less than or equal to 10. Counter was initialized to 1, and the value of counter is incremented before checking this condition, because we're using the pre increment operator. Remember, we're putting a semicolon at the end of that condition. If you execute this code, this is the output that you'll get, the numbers 1 through 10. Because remember, your starting counter with 1. You'll keep going on as long as the value of counter is less than or equal to 10. So when you get here with counter printed out to 10, you get to this condition one more time. Counter is incremented to 11, and that makes this condition over here false, which means you'll exit the do while loop. I'll also show you the corresponding flowchart for the do while loop. And like I said, the do while loop is different in this sense that the code in the body of the loop is always executed at least one time before this condition is evaluated to either true or false. If it's true, obviously you'll run the code in the body of the loop at least one more time or many more times. If it's false, you'll exit, but you'll still have executed this at least once.